President Trump going on the attack, this time against the FBI. In a series of tweets, he's saying the Bureau's reputation is in tatters, that it's the worst in history. Joining us now is former U.S. Attorney General Alberto Gonzales. Good to have you, sir.
Chris, it's good to be with you.
Is the FBI in tatters?
Well, you know, I think certainly the president, as head of the executive branch, is entitled to his opinion, but I felt that his words were unfortunate. You know, the actions of one agent cannot tarnish the reputation of the FBI any more than the actions of one individual during the transition or in the White House can tarnish necessarily the reputation of the White House. And so from my perspective, from my experience, the FBI is composed of men and women of extraordinary talents and dedication. And as far as I can tell, that continues today. And again, I think that the comments from the president are unfortunate. If the president or the White House has concerns or complaints about the work of any agency, any department, then those concerns are best handled privately, and hopefully those are resolved privately.
Unfortunate, why? What do you think the effect is of these words? And do you think that the Attorney General and the head of the FBI have a duty to come out and say what you're saying?
Well, I don't know whether or not they have a duty to directly contradict the president. Again, the president is head of the executive branch and certainly entitled to express his opinion. But the Attorney General, nothing prevents the Attorney General, I think, or the head of the FBI to come out and talk about the great work that the department and the FBI is doing. And if the White House believes that they should be doing things better, then express dedication to doing a better job. But, you know, I think directly contradicting the president, I think you can express support for the FBI without directly contradicting the president or taking the president on directly.
The president tweets that he had to fire Flynn because he lied to the FBI. That is being taken as an assumption that the president knew he lied to the FBI when he asked Comey to see his way clear to ending the probe on Flynn. Is that troubling to you?
It does raise questions, and I think it raises questions that, unfortunately, it's sort of a self-inflicted wound. It just raises additional questions about what actually transpired here. And again, you know, I think you and I have had this discussion before in the past. I think sometimes these tweets from the president's account, whether or not directly from the president or not, has created problems for the White House. And I think that I agree with many people, certainly former officials who question the wisdom of continuous tweeting without any kind of any kind of review or any more consideration about the effects of these tweets, which creates problems for the White House going forward.
Well, in this one, that problem might be too much truth, former Attorney General, because if it is true that he knew that he had lied, why does it matter? Here's why it matters. If it's true, it would be a suggestion that the President of the United States asked the head of the FBI to stop an investigation even though he knew that there had been a violation of the law. And that would be a different analysis on obstruction of justice than if he did not know that there had been any violation of law. Fair point?
Well, that's certainly a fair point, and that will be a question that Bob Mueller will attempt to answer to ascertain whether or not there was corrupt intent, which is required under the law for obstruction of justice. You know, one thing we have to remember, of course, is that Donald Trump did not order Jim Comey to fire. Did not order Jim Comey to drop the investigation. He made an inquiry or a suggestion or a question as to whether or not can't you see yourself letting this investigation cease with respect to Mr. Flynn. So whether or not we have obstruction of justice here, I think there are still questions that have to be answered, and that's going to be the work of Bob Mueller and his team.
No question. We're going to have to see what the special counsel comes up with on this. So the president this morning in two separate tweets appears to have endorsed Roy Moore. And it seems to come down to a very simple political calculus. They need the seat to get these votes done, even if they're going to do it with simple majorities through reconciliation rules. What do you make of making the priority the seat, even though there are these allegations against Roy Moore?
Listen, I can only approach this from the perspective of a potential voter, because that's all I am today as a private citizen. I don't think, based on what I know in the public record, that I would vote for Roy Moore for the Senate seat. Now, but ultimately, this is a decision for the voters of Alabama. I don't think that I would vote for Doug Jones, but I'm not sure that I would vote for Roy Moore, simply because there are a lot of unanswered questions in my mind. And if I were in Alabama and I were voting in this election, before voting, I would try to do as much due diligence as I could to try to ascertain, you know, the merits of these allegations. But based on what I know today, I don't think I would feel comfortable voting for Roy Moore for this Alabama seat. But I don't think I would vote for Doug Jones either.
Understood. But while it is certainly the choice of the Alabama voter, I mean, I don't think anybody questions that. Don't you think it's the duty of elected leaders, certainly at the federal level, to weigh in on matters of this type of importance?
You know, that's a very hard question, Chris. You know, a duty of the elected leaders to weigh in on this kind of question. You know, the voters of Alabama have access to all the same kind of information, and so they're going to make this decision. Again, I can only speak to this from the viewpoint of a private citizen, and from my perspective, based on what I know today, I'm not sure that I'd feel comfortable voting for Roy Moore for the Senate seat.
But you don't need that seat the way the elected officials in the GOP and the president do right now, because you are a private citizen. You're in a very different situation, and we always welcome you and your perspective on New Day. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chris.
And if I don't speak to you before, Merry Christmas to you and the family.
Same to you, Chris.
Right,
appreciate it.
Allison.
Okay, when you think Silicon Valley, you think technology.